You think you finally met the right person. They
Woohoo!
make you laugh. They listen. They notice the smallest things about you. The way you tap your fingers when you're nervous, the pause before you answer when you don't want to lie. And for a while, you feel something you almost forgot existed. Peace. But one evening, the silence between you feels heavier than usual. They don't look at you quite the same. You tell yourself it's nothing, but inside, a familiar unease wakes up. You start replaying moments, searching for clues. It's strange, isn't it? You wanted peace, and now that you have it, it feels suspicious. Maybe the question isn't, is this the right person? Maybe the real question is, why do I only trust what hurts? You want love that lasts, but you also want it to feel new every day. You want safety, but you chase spark. You want calm, but you miss the rush. You want someone who sees you, but not so clearly that you feel exposed. You think that's balance, but it's really hesitation disguised as control. You say you're protecting your heart, but sometimes what you're protecting is the chaos you've learned to call passion. Because when you grow up inside storms, sunshine feels like a trap. You tell yourself, I just don't want to waste time on the wrong one. But maybe that's not the whole truth. Maybe you're not afraid of wasting time. You're afraid of being the only one who tried. Afraid of giving your all and watching it dissolve quietly while everyone says you should be grateful. Afraid of the calm after effort because calm feels like ending. That's how the mind confuses love with repetition. It remembers what came before, and if peace doesn't match that memory, it labels peace as danger. The brain calls this predictive coding. It expects chaos, so it prepares for chaos. That's why, when someone actually stays, part of you wants to run. You think of love as electricity, bright, immediate, undeniable. But electricity burns if it never grounds. Healthy love doesn't shock you. It steadies you. And if steadiness feels dull, it's because you've mistaken adrenaline for affection. Sometimes you call it chemistry. But chemistry, too often, is just trauma finding its reflection. It's the nervous system saying, I know this pattern. I survived this before. It's not love. It's recognition of pain that once kept you alive. You promise yourself you'll choose differently next time. And yet the same story returns with a new face. Different laugh, same ache. Different eyes, same silence. Because you're not repeating the person, you're repeating the lesson. If that sounds too close to home, breathe. You're not broken, you're patterned. Patterns can be rewritten, but not by running. They rewrite themselves when you finally stay still long enough to see them. You think love will fix the ache, but love doesn't heal what you hide. It heals what you face. And facing yourself is harder than finding someone new. So maybe you keep searching, not for love, but for distraction from the moment before love. The quiet before certainty. The second where you don't yet know if you're safe. Because that's where all your ghosts live. The moment someone hesitates, every goodbye you never processed wakes up inside you. And you start protecting yourself from the past instead of connecting with the present. You think you're careful, but maybe you're just tired. Tired of losing, tired of hoping, tired of pretending you're not still waiting for someone to come back and choose you again. If any of this feels like your story, stay. This isn't a place that promises answers. It's a space that holds the questions long enough for you to stop running from them. And if that feels like something you've been needing, then maybe quietly you've already begun to change. You think love is supposed to feel certain, but certainty is the opposite of intimacy. Intimacy lives in uncertainty, in the courage to be seen without guarantees. That's why it terrifies you. You want connection, but you want it to come with safety instructions. You want to love, but only if you can avoid loss. Love never gives you that contract. It offers presence instead, and presence asks for surrender. That surrender is the first doorway to peace. But most people stand at the threshold their whole lives, too scared to step through, too proud to admit they're scared. When you finally do step through, you realize something strange. Peace isn't the absence of feeling. It's the end of performing. You once thought love would be obvious, that when it was right, it would be calm and pure without confusion. But sometimes the right person makes you confront everything you've avoided. They mirror the parts of you that still flinch when touched. They don't save you from yourself. They sit beside the storm you've spent years pretending wasn't there. That's why real love can feel like conflict before it feels like comfort. It doesn't arrive to complete you. It arrives to expose what still resists being whole. A woman once told me she left a man everyone called perfect. He was kind, patient, steady. He remembered anniversaries, washed the dishes, held her hand in public. But she said she felt lonely next to him, not because he failed her, but because she didn't know how to rest in quiet. When nothing was wrong, her body panicked. She picked fights just to feel alive again. Peace felt like distance. She left because she couldn't stand the silence that love required to grow. Months later, she realized it wasn't boredom, it was withdrawal. Her body had been addicted to the chaos that once proved she mattered. She didn't miss the man, she missed the noise. That's what neuroscience calls the dopamine-cortisol loop. The same rush that makes you check your phone every 2 minutes after a text is the same one that keeps gamblers at the table. Tension, reward, tension again. The brain mistakes anticipation for love because both release the same chemical cocktail. Healthy love feels calmer because the body replaces adrenaline with oxytocin. But when you've lived on adrenaline for years, calm feels like loss. That's why you sometimes chase the ones who hurt you and ignore the ones who stay. You're not craving them. You're craving the chemical pattern they trigger. Attachment theory explains it further. If you grew up needing to earn affection, you might equate anxiety with connection. If you learned early that closeness leads to disappointment, you might confuse independence with safety. Your nervous system becomes fluent in fear but illiterate in peace. So when someone loves you without conditions, you start looking for reasons not to trust it. You'll say they're too nice, too predictable, too calm. But what you really mean is, I don't recognize this kind of love yet. Healing doesn't make you suddenly attract perfect people. It just makes you stop running from the ones who are good for you. Sometimes, the right person appears when you finally stop rehearsing your pain. They enter quietly, and at first you don't even notice them. Because healthy love doesn't announce itself. It grows in stillness. It begins with small kindnesses repeated over time. You'll mistake that for simplicity until one day you realize. Peace has depth too, it just whispers instead of shouting. But love will still test you, not to destroy you, but to show you what's left to heal. It will press against every boundary you built out of fear and ask, can this one soften? It will invite honesty in the exact place you used to lie for protection. And it will wait while you decide whether safety or freedom matters more. A man I once knew described his marriage as quietly exhausting. He and his wife never fought, never raised their voices. But their silence was not peace, it was avoidance. They confused politeness with respect and calm with connection. When they finally went to therapy, they realized they hadn't been listening to each other for years. They'd been managing each other's reactions. Through that work, they learned that love isn't agreement. It's curiosity. It's saying, tell me again, I want to understand you. Even when you think you already know. It's admitting, I was wrong, without adding, but so were you. Love is not maintenance. It's awareness renewed daily. It survives on humility, not certainty. It grows when both people choose honesty over harmony. Because harmony without truth is just a prettier form of distance. You'll know love is becoming real when you stop keeping score. When forgiveness stops feeling like losing. When you'd rather be understood than be right. At that point, you no longer chase love to feel alive. You love because you already are. The strange thing is, most of us don't fear heartbreak. We fear the quiet after heartbreak, the space where no one is coming to fill the silence. But that silence is where identity forms. It's where you remember who you are without performance. If you can stay there long enough, you start noticing beauty again in the small things. The way light touches the wall in the morning. The way water sounds when it boils. The way your own breath settles when you stop searching for proof. That's where love returns, not from outside, but from within. And when it does, it no longer needs to be perfect. It just needs to be honest. Love will always show you yourself. That's the part no one prepares you for. When you finally find someone safe, it won't be fireworks that scare you. It will be stillness. Because in stillness, there's nowhere left to hide. When there's no drama to fix, you start hearing all the noise that used to be drowned out. Every insecurity, every voice that once said you were too much or not enough. And suddenly, you realize peace isn't quiet, it's loud. It echoes everything you tried to outrun. That's why the first stage of healthy love can feel uncomfortable. It's not that they're doing something wrong. It's that safety gives you the space to feel what chaos never let you feel. That ache isn't a warning sign. It's your body thawing. People think healing means you stop hurting, but healing means you finally feel everything you once suppressed, and you stop running from it. Love is the same. It brings everything to the surface so it can be met, not managed. You will have days where you want to retreat, days when you'll crave the familiarity of your old patterns, the drama, the highs, the lows. They used to give you identity. Now you have to build one without them, and that's terrifying. But underneath that fear is freedom, the kind of freedom that doesn't come from having someone, but from no longer needing to lose yourself when you do. Because love isn't the opposite of loneliness. It's the opposite of fear. Loneliness is just the echo of everything you refused to feel before. Once you let yourself feel it fully, it dissolves. That's why people who have truly healed aren't afraid to be alone anymore. Not because they stopped wanting connection, but because they've learned to offer it to themselves first. They stopped treating solitude like punishment. They started treating it like rehearsal for peace. Real love doesn't rescue you from solitude. It meets you there. It adds warmth to what was already whole. When two people meet from that place, love doesn't take away their edges. It helps them fit. There's friction, yes, but it's creative, not destructive. They don't try to fix each other's past. They simply make room for it. They say, I see where you've been, and I'm not afraid to meet you there. That's how love becomes partnership instead of repetition. It no longer performs the same old script. It writes a new language. In this language, silence is not distance. Boundaries are not rejection. Honesty is not cruelty. Time apart is not abandonment. And forgiveness is not weakness. It's a softer kind of strength, the kind that holds space for imperfection without losing respect. You'll know you're growing when you stop counting how many times someone reassures you and start noticing how often you feel safe enough not to need it. You'll know it's right when you stop needing to be chosen every day because you've already chosen yourself. Love, at its purest, is presence without possession. It's the willingness to see another person as they are, without turning them into proof of your worth, and to let them see you without hiding the parts that still tremble. That's why it's so rare, because presence demands vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like risk until it becomes home. When you can stand in front of someone with all your history and still feel seen, not as a project to fix, but as a human to meet. That's when love stops being theory and becomes truth. But here's the quiet paradox. To reach that kind of love, you have to stop chasing it. You have to stop running every time it doesn't give you the high you're used to. You have to stop trying to predict what peace should feel like, and simply let it unfold. Love will never arrive on your timeline. It arrives when you're ready to recognize it. And readiness has nothing to do with perfection. It has to do with presence. The moment you stop performing, you start receiving. Because love doesn't reward performance. It responds to honesty. When you finally understand this, you forgive yourself for all the times you stayed too long and all the times you left too early. You see that every version of you was just trying to learn what safety felt like. Even the mistakes were attempts at love, just confused ones. That's the grace of awareness. It turns regret into understanding. It lets you hold your past gently, the same way you hope someone will hold you. And when you can hold yourself that way, you stop demanding love to fill what you've already begun to heal. You start sharing love instead of searching for it. That's when you become the right person. Not perfect, not fixed, just open. And open people find open people. Not because they look for each other, but because peace recognizes itself. You'll still have days of doubt. You'll still question if you're lovable. especially on the days you feel small and quiet and unseen. But those moments won't destroy you anymore. They'll remind you to return to yourself, to breathe, to stay, to remember. Love isn't somewhere you go, it's the way you come back. And maybe one day, when you're sitting next to someone, and the world outside is loud, but your mind feels still, you'll realize you don't need to ask the question anymore. You won't need to measure or define or prove it. You'll just know, because love, the right kind, doesn't shout to be heard. It stays, quietly, steadily, enough. If this made you breathe a little easier, that's not coincidence. It's recognition. It means part of you has started to trust peace again. And if you'd like to keep remembering how to do that, you can always return here. We don't chase love here. We learn how to see it. Not the loud kind, but the one that stays. Maybe tonight, when you close the door behind you, when the noise fades and only the hum of the room remains, you'll realize peace isn't silence after all. It's the sound of your own breath returning, the steady rhythm of being alive without rushing to be chosen. Tomorrow, the world will look the same. Coffee, messages, the weight of small routines. But something in you will meet it differently. You'll walk a little slower. You'll listen before reacting. You'll notice how light moves across the floor and think, this is enough. Love doesn't always arrive with answers. Sometimes it arrives with permission to pause, to rest, to stop demanding the next chapter before you've lived this one. And when you forget, as you will, come back here, not for advice, but for a reminder, you're allowed to feel calm. You're allowed to stay. Because love isn't a finish line waiting for proof. It's the quiet practice of returning to yourself, to peace, to now.